Welcome back to Universe X, and today we will be talking about not only Draft Box 6 and kind of the initial thoughts on it, but we're also going to be talking about like the product structure in general, because I want to get a discussion going. And when it comes to videos in the past week, I know it's been 4 days. A lot of stuff was coming up in the real life, and I just had to make sure everything was situated before I could get right back into things. So back to the grind, as they say. Gonna try to get up to 400. We got a surprising amount of subscribers, even with the slow amount of uploads in the past week. So we're at 350, I believe 2 when I'm recording this. Hopefully we can be at 400 in a week. That would be awesome. So help me out. And so we have just had Draft Box 6 release. And I kind of still haven't reviewed the cards for yellow and black. But I will get to that. In fact, because it's no longer new content, I'm probably just going to record them both, upload them both same day, just so I can complete the cycle, and the multicolored cards too. So when it comes to this draft box, the first thing I wanted to say is that they are doing a survey online where you can talk about the draft box. I mean, some people have had an issue with the new foiling, card stock. Some people have had their various grievances or their praises. So go there. The link will be in the description, and you can just fill this stuff out. And it's important to fill things like this out because it's the only way that Bandai really knows our feedback. Like, they can cruise forums, they can look on Facebook groups, but when they put out a survey like this and you get to openly rate and kind of critique or praise their product, do it. It is how we let them know what we should expect or what we want and what we hopefully should have. There's also a little bit of space where they ask you what content creator you'd like to see be allowed to spoil content in the future. So if you're a fan, if you're a fan of your boy, you just make sure you put a UniXDBS in that space. I've had a couple of my friends screenshot it and send it to me, so I'm gonna put that screenshot right over here. Just think about it, because I would love the chance to spoil things. So when it comes to Draft Box 6, a lot of people are kind of sitting here kind of odded out because nothing in the draft box seems broken enough to warrant like Obuni's or Sand Instinct's price tag, or maybe pre-reprint Raiders Warcry. And honestly, I'm fine with that. Like, seriously, I think that when you start having things as hard to get as draft box SRs be some of the most dominant cards in the format, I think it causes a problem. Like, everybody knows draft boxes are only really sold to brick and mortar stores, or you can buy them online, so they're not found in your Target, and that automatically makes them fairly hard to come by. And so with things like this, when you have cards like Sand Instincts, it really does warp the format, because these cards are still, to this day, Sand Instincts is it's like a $300 playset. It can be. Obuni used to be a $400 playset. Same with Sand Instincts. It's absolutely wild. So I'm not mad that one of the most expensive cards in the set is Demigra at like $36, $37. That's not bad for me. I mean, I feel like the price of a good card. Now, I don't even think it needs that price tag, but it is what it is. I think the power level on these cards being a little lower actually is just in general good for the game, because I think the best cards, like TP, good cards being in TP already was kind of stretching it to me, but people who are already winning, being able to win more, that's the reason why it kind of gets to me. And then once they have those TPs and kind of bogard top spaces, if the card's that powerful, they can kind of end up being the people already winning harder, and then selling their excess winnings to the people who aren't winning as much, and then that becomes a problem on its own. But I think most of the power should be in the main set. I think everybody should be able to pull for the most part and get decks put together that are top levels of competitiveness. Now, when it comes to the draft box myself, I do think it's cool that they put support to cards, archetypes that we haven't been able to play for a little bit. I think that's actually really, really cool. However, I do have a couple of gripes with it in general. And it's not from the standpoint of, oh, they're not supporting things I want them to support. because I think it's cool. I think it's cool that Hirudegarn's getting support. I think it's cool that we're seeing some cards that just the Bardock apes, you know, like the Bardock's crew. I think it's all cool. However, I do believe that draft has the propensity to be a very, very fun format. It just is in general. I think draft is, people like it because you don't have to necessarily, it takes off some of the burden of constructed, coming up with the perfect deck list. And drafting can be very, 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 very skillful, you know, when you know how to draft, when you know how to read what colors are being passed to you and which ones aren't, so that you know which one maybe you should shift. The minute or big deck choices you have to make as you assemble your deck. Now, this being said, I don't think that the draft format in Dragon Ball Super is a draft format. Like, you're seeing like whole archetypes, and it is kind of loose, because like with red you can just generically build a good red deck, okay? But blue and green, those are archetypes where you can't really afford to like build it. Like it's super janky. I don't think necessarily, like, it's one thing when your main set is being drafted, because yeah, it's your main set. It was made for people to buy sealed product until they had the archetypes assembled. But when you have a draft box specifically supposed to be made for drafting, I don't think it's necessarily the move to put archetypes in there, because that doesn't lead to a good drafting experience. And then, you know, on top of that, the boxes for draft box are color locked, just like the boxes for Vermilion Bloodline were. So you can open up an entire box and only see one kind of SR. And that also leads to kind of a bad drafting experience. So I personally feel like in future draft boxes, and if you're not with me, just let me know. Like in the comments, let me know if you actually would like to see draft as like a format you could really get behind in side events, or maybe even draft tournaments at your locals. I do believe that draft boxes, there's nothing wrong with making a card in draft box that's powerful enough to be played in the current meta. However, I do think that if you're going to bring support for Hirudegarn, if you're going to bring support for Meta Cooler, if you're gonna make more support for any archetype that's kind of already dead, I don't think it belongs in draft box. I think that's a power booster. Maybe a structure deck that has new cards for that archetype. Maybe an anniversary set that brings back things, you know, things we've all had before. And I do think they can use structure decks to power up an archetype. But I don't think that something like draft box should have it, because draft box, if you're making a set specifically for drafting, it needs to be good for drafting. This means no color locking SRs. This means no putting entire archetypes in draft box, because it makes it harder for you to build a deck on the fly when your only bomb, your only green SR requires you to have a multiple Hirudegarn cards that you never got to see pass around in draft. I do think cards like Sand Instincts and Nobuni were kind of the way to go when it came to draft bombs, like, because, you know, Sand Instincts can be played in any deck, but it just happens to fit well in yellow, and I'm sorry for that. Then you have cards like Abuni, which once again, just a generically good blue card. And by generically, I mean generically really good. But I think that's the way all draft boxes should be. You know, you should be able to just charge 4 blue and play any real good blue card in your draft format. There shouldn't be stipulations to what other cards you need to get first. Archetype heavy draft boxes, not the way. Now, moving on from that, I now don't really think that draft boxes should only be sent to brick and mortars, because at this point, draft boxes are just another power booster. They really are. If you want drafting to kick off as a format, draft box needs to be available in your brick and mortars. It needs to be available in your GameStops. It needs to be available in your Targets. And if you ever get a contract with things like Walmart, put them there too. Because the thing about drafting is people love doing drafting casually. The amount of sales you would be able to make as Bandai from having draft boxes in Target would be phenomenal. You'd have people wanting to get the cards. You'd have people wanting to collect. You'd have people wanting to buy them to flip them, but you'd also have people that get a draft box because they do want to go home and call their friends over and draft. And you know what? In a time like this is being made on November 14th, 2020, still amidst Corona. The ability to buy a draft box from a Target, take it home and crack it with 5 other people that you know don't have Corona and can just sit and play in your home. That's the sauce. That's the sauce right there. So those are kind of just my points for that. I think that Draftbox does need to cut back on the specific quantities of archetypes, because it's not a main set. You're not just going to sit there and buy draft box after draft box after draft box and have places of everything. You're meant to use it as a draft format. You're meant to go to your events and draft. You're meant to maybe take it home, like I said, and draft it with your friends. It shouldn't be that focused. And then they should get the distribution up as well, because frankly, I'm not trying to hate on anybody. I know Draftbox is very lucrative, or it has been in the past, maybe not this set, but Draftbox, the way it's structured, only helps the second market. Doesn't even really help Bandai. I mean, of course, Bandai sells out, but then the secondary market just goes absolutely nuts. But if you put it in your Targets, you put it in your GameStops, you're gonna have just as many, maybe even more people buying your draft boxes. It's just, at the same time, we'll be able to have more freedom in actually playing draft if it's a format that we like. And I do believe that your draft boxes should be super draftable. You know, specified costs, maybe stopping at 2, maybe going up to 3 every now and then. So if you build deep green, you can have a deep green boss. But come on, not the way it is. Not just putting support onto archetypes that already exist. And with some colors, it was more and less. I mean, because with black was a very good color at just generally giving black cards that are good, you know. But blue is a whole archetype. Green is a whole archetype. Red, they kind of got a theme, but they fit really well. You can use these red cards in other decks that just aren't from Draftbox. So I do believe that there are some hits and misses in here. I do believe that the fact that the draft box isn't breaking banks yet means that there was nothing printed that just destroys the game, which is also good. Like I said, if the distribution is going to be that low, the power level can't be that high. And I wouldn't mind the power level being a little higher if the draft boxes were easier to obtain so that your player base can have access to these cards. But like I said, if you want to release a bunch of archetypes, make it a power booster. If you want to have a drafting format, make it more draft worthy, because looking at these cards, running cards through drawing simulators, you really don't often get to build decks that feel like, wow, I could have a fun time playing with these decks over 3 rounds for some extra packs. It just doesn't really feel like it. So this isn't really a bashing thing. I'm just my suggestions in general, hoping that in the comments you guys let me know what you were thinking, what you feel about draft and what they're doing. And lastly, I know lots of people are saying that the product is coming out very fast, but I said it in my last video and I'll stick with it here. This is how we keep the game alive. It does seem like a lot, even when we can't have in-person tournaments, but if Bandai doesn't keep making money off this game will cease to keep living. And so for the time being, yeah, we have to support it. If you love the game and you want it to keep going, you have to support it in these needy times. So, that being said, I hope you guys liked the video. Let me know if you have anything to add to discussion. I would definitely like to see these comments popping off and go into them myself. So, that being said, thank you guys for listening. And if you like discussion videos like this, also let me know. And if you like the content, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.